So we've got one more thing to talk about before we get out of here, and it's our top 5 for this week. And this week we are discussing our top 5 tag teams of 2016. These we think are the best tag teams of this last year. And did you have any honorable mentions?
I had 3 honorable mentions, and this will tell you, let me just say this has been the best year of tag team wrestling. I'd probably say since Dudley Boys, Hardy, Edge, and Christian time and period, because my honorable mentions are American Alpha, Slater and Rhino, and the Wyatts.
Oh, very good.
So when you look at those as honorable mentions, how good does the other 5 have to be?
Agreed. So my honorable mentions, I also have 3. My honorable mentions are the Briscoes, the Addiction, and the Wyatt family.
Definitely can't argue with that.
All right, so who is number 5 in your list?
Number 5 is Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano.
Nice.
They have taken the heart of the NXT crowd. 2 guys that didn't work together before, but their chemistry together is so amazing, and they're the closest thing to I like to lovable losers, but they win and they look good winning. And honestly, I don't think they work apart. And one day, when they finally do the turn, whoever turns on who, of course, it'll have to be Ciampa, the Psycho Killer, turning. It's going to make for an amazing storyline. So, Ciampa and Gargano.
Very nice. You will see them on my list later on. My number 5 was on your honorable mentions, and that is American Alpha. They had such a good year in NXT and some matches against someone else who I'm sure will be much higher on both of our lists, that you just take a couple of guys, one guy who is pretty much brand new to pro wrestling and is a lot better than he should be at this point in his career, and then a guy who's been kind of languishing in developmental for a long time and then finally found the missing piece of the puzzle, and these two have just so well together, and there's just so much upside in both of these two guys that they're fantastic. All right, so who is your number 4?
My number 4, as I pull up the list on my phone, is Broken Matt and Brother Nero. I put them at 4 because they've changed the landscape of wrestling and how you tell a story. A lot of it had to do with TNA languishing and looking for something new and something different. And in this case, Billy Corgan, from what I understand, had a lot to do with green lighting this information. But they've revitalized their careers in a way I never thought they would. I never thought they would be a full-time tag team again. Some of his promos and how he stays in character, very old school, like 70s, 80s. He stays he doesn't break kayfabe that often, and the gray hair, and Matt Hardy has always been the storyteller of the group. If you look at when Bubba Ray and Devon, when they said they put together the ladder matches, it would be Matt and Bubba Ray a lot of the times putting together those matches, those incredible spots and everything like that. So he's always known how to tell a story. He's finally getting his due. He's always been my favorite of the Hardy Boys.
Very nice. And they are not on my list. I actually did not think of them, but as I move around another list, I think we might be seeing a broken addition to that list. So my number 4 is the biggest tag team in all of independent wrestling, the Young Bucks.
You see them later in my list, of course, and yeah, I agree.
All right, who is your number 3?
The Young Bucks. That's why I didn't really elaborate right then. I literally hate that they throw the super kick so much. But I hate it so much it's become a part of their storyline, because they say they throw the super kick so much because people hate it. And they're heels, so, that's what the heel's supposed to do. They're the best at being the cool heels that you can ask for in the nation. They're so small that I mean, I guess if they ever did a face turn, it would still work. Just because of who they are, I think they could pretty much do anything they want to get over. They are the prototype. They are the example for anyone that doesn't want to go to WWE. And I say that when you say that, it's not that they can't. They don't want to. And that is a powerful statement in wrestling right now, is that I can choose not to be a part of the machine.
And that's great. I think that shows that even though wrestling is in a lot of ways languishing right now, I think it's the industry, especially independent wrestling, is stronger than people realize. And just the success of the Young Bucks goes to show that. My number 3 is hashtag DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. I just love these guys. As we mentioned with matches, our match of the year, top 5, they were all over it, like in multiple spots. I just can't say anything bad about these two. I adore them. Who is your number 2?
Number 2 is the longest reigning, and I would do the hip thrust if this was video, WWE Tag Team Champions in history. I think when it came to the tag team revolution, which also gets lost behind the women's revolution, the tag team revolution, they were the leaders. They made people care about tag team wrestling. They weren't just the hottest tag team in the WWE. For about 6 to 8 months, they were the hottest act in the WWE. And I would beg people to argue with me who's a hotter act now, because they're still pretty hot. And fans have not turned on them. And when they do their thing, they're still behind them. And that is something to say, because fans usually would have turned on them by now. Just in general, they would have just gotten oversaturated. For almost 500 days as tag team champions, you think they would get tired, but they haven't. And I think that comes to the personalities of it all. You got Xavier, the geek. You got Kofi, the old school. He's always on everybody's best wrestlers list, but he never got pushed all the way there. You have Big E, who is pretty much everything the WWE wants when they are recruiting wrestlers. So it's a very good team, that their chemistry goes together, and the fact that they're real life friends and that they just go out and have fun every night. You can see it. It comes through. Everything they say becomes a T-shirt. The New Day.
There you go. And my number 1 and my number 2 actually flip-flopped this week. So I will be talking about that team in a moment. My number 2, the Revival. I think it's pretty safe to say that right now we'll just talk about both of these teams at the same time. Is it safe to say your number 1 is the Revival?
My number 1 is the Revival.
Yes, and my number 1 is the New Day. So, in a way, I could probably just say they're tied. But when the New Day beat that record this week, I just couldn't not put them at number 1. I was like, I can't, even though... And when I think about... I'm like, well, do I really like one better than the other? Because I kind of love them both, but for very different reasons. The Revival are the old school Jim Cornette of tag team wrestling. Everything that's great about tag team wrestling you find in the Revival. And the New Day are just the most entertaining 3 people you could have on your TV at any given time.
They are the Black Freebirds. They're Black Freebirds. They're everything the Freebirds probably would have been if they had social media. It's just like they record themselves having a good time. The whole New Day thing relates to a topic I think got left off our list on accident. There was a picture that went along with the Black Excellence thing.
Yeah.
And it was a big... It wasn't... It's tying into what I'm saying is... Because I don't even think of them as black. I don't. I think of them as great tag team. I think of them as a great tag team in wrestling. And you see them behind the stages, and they're usually fooling around with Sasha or Naomi when they were all together, and it just looks like They have a really good time together. It looks like they keep the locker room light, and that's it. The Revival are professionals. They are, what I mean by that is everything about them says professional wrestler. They represent professional wrestling in a great way, and they love it. And I will always be a fan of people that are lifelong fans.
Yeah, and they came out of their shells in this last year, because they started out, I mean, in a lot of ways like Blake and Murphy, they were a jobber team, and then they got what looked like fluke win, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, these guys are actually really stinking good. And then, what was it, last week on NXT when they came out and the crowd was singing along to their music.
Yeah.
That was just, I mean, that was a goosebumps moment. That was so cool. But yeah, I did want to, since you'd mentioned it, this is a good point to talk about the controversy over the picture. So after Monday Night Raw, was it Big E that posted it, or was it Xavier?
I don't actually know who posted it. I just know.
Well, I know for sure Big E did post it. I don't know if he was the first one, but there was a picture went around, and we'll just say Big E posted it, of the New Day holding up their tag team championship with Sasha Banks holding the women's championship and Rich Swann holding the cruiserweight championship, and it was posted with the hashtag Black Excellence, and this sent people into a tizzy. They lost their ever-loving minds, and not just what you would think, a whole bunch of white people going, well, if you had AJ Styles and the Wyatt family up there, and you put something that said hashtag white excellence, people would freak out. There was some of that, but there was also a lot of kickback from the black community as well. You started to talk about that because my initial thought, and then I'll let you expand on this, but my initial thought when I saw that, I was like, well, they're black and they're excellent, so what's the problem?
My whole thing is, I definitely put a large post on our club group about this, and I'm just going to kind of just go into exactly what I'm saying. I long for the time, as a black person, I long for the time where that thing would have just said hashtag excellence, and they would have just been friends that decided, to take pictures of themselves. But living in the world that we live in, wrestling, fortunately, is usually a microcosm of what we see in real life. It is usually turned up or turned down. And the fact is, there was a time in wrestling where there was Junkyard Dog, who was one of the biggest wrestlers in his territory. There was Coco Beware, one of the biggest wrestlers in his territory. When they both signed the WWF, neither one of them ever held WWF gold. And a lot of it had to do with the color of their skin and whether rest people can handle a black champion. I mean, you definitely had people that put their thumb to that, and and I will always appreciate it now. But we look at it. Kofi's been a multiple-time champion. New Day is the longest-reigning tag team champion. Rich Swann's the most overrated cruiserweight champion. Sasha Banks is part of the Four Horsewomen. The Rock's main event at WrestleMania. Booker T has been a five-time WCW champion. You don't have to think of them as black anymore. They're just wrestlers. And I'm not saying to me the post was necessary, because the post is just to the thumb in the nose at the people that just don't believe that black people can do this, and thumb in the nose definitely at the people, because the WWE has long been considered racist. And looking at their current roster, looking at what they do, I'm like, I don't really see it. I don't understand where that's coming from.
Yeah, and I think the WWE has suffered from, I think Vince is thought to be probably, if not outwardly racist adjacent, as to borrow a term from politics, what people refer to as the alt-right, being like Donald Trump is racist adjacent. And I think Kevin Dunn has a reputation for not liking folks of color. He also just has a reputation for being a grade A douchebag. So take that as you will. I saw this as, okay, so here's a group of people who share something in common. They're all part of a group that has been disenfranchised and disaffected throughout American history, and they're celebrating their success. And to me, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And for all of the talk of, well, you couldn't have a group of white people do the same thing. Well, it's like, well, on the one hand, should we be in a society where none of this ever matters and you don't say white and black and all that? Absolutely, 100%. Sadly, like you said, we're not. And the connotation that comes with, even if you don't have poor intentions in doing it, the connotation of saying, white excellence or white pride or any of this is really bad. Even if you have not a racist bone in your body and you are just, bless your heart, clueless. And you're just like, well, I happen to be white. I like who I am. And you just don't realize that there is a real serious negativity to that, and that people interpret that as being as an oppressive system and as an oppressive society from years past that is slowly being chipped away, but still to some extent exists in this day and time. And that's sometimes, I think, what's get lost on some of the people who are the folks who are like, well, you can't have a white history month and all that. And it's like, well, you're the majority. The majority doesn't really need to celebrate itself. Let minority groups, let these disenfranchised groups have their thing, because in a lot of ways we have done a piss poor job as a society of self-segregating ourselves. I think Martin Luther King would look at us now and kind of shake his head and go, what did y'all do? Man, did I really get shot in Memphis for this? Because we have done such a job of, especially thanks to the internet, we are into our thing and we have our groups and we get news from the things that tell us that we're right and we're good and we're righteous, and screw everyone else. And everyone else is the enemy. And we've done this to ourselves, and it's sad. And one thing I love in this show, I love the fact that Floyd, you and I have known each other for a number of years. We met, at Sprint, right?
Yeah.
We were working at Sprint. And as I'm a dude, I really try. I mean, my whole thing with people, I don't care, what your ethnicity is. I don't care what country you were born in. I'm like, are you a dick? I mean, yeah. It boils down to that. But also, I didn't realize, because I grew up in the South, in relatively suburban areas. Until I worked at Sprint, I didn't realize how damn white I was, and how really different the cultures between African American society and white America, how different it is. And working at Sprint, it was a very multicultural place. That was the first place I ever worked with a whole lot of black people. It was the first place I worked with a whole lot of gay people. And I was one of those very racism kids always. I was always very pro-gay. My whole life I've just been that way. I'm like, people are people. Who cares what color your skin is? Who cares who you sleep with? Are you a douche? That's all that matters. But it was eye-opening for me. And then, so having friends like you, and especially being able to keep in touch over the years thanks to the internet. One of the good things about the internet, we are able to come together through our love of wrestling and talk about these things. And so, yeah, it's a sad state of affairs that this simple picture of, these 5 people celebrating their success and making a social statement turned into such a shitstorm,
Yeah, and I mean, let me just say this. I have never had made a friend or anything based on the color of the skin or whatever. You like what I like, we have things in common, you're good. A big thing with me is if you can hold a good conversation, I'm with you. Other than, I don't really care if, what color your skin is. So I grew up with most of my heroes being white. I mean, like I said, my favorite wrestler of all time was a middle-aged white man named Arn Anderson. So I never thought of it as a big deal. And, and I don't. And then it's like, in the last 5 to 10 years, I've been unfortunately punched in the face with how big of a deal it is and how different I can be, or how different people see me. So it is, it comes to the conclusion that black pride, black excellence, even though it's something I'm not going to post a lot of, because I will never think I'm excellent because I'm black. I will never think I have pride in because I'm black, because it was just something I was born in. I didn't have anything to do with it. I came out and I just happened to have this color on my skin. The content of my character, what I like, what I do is all that matters to me. And that's why when MLK said that when people be judged on the content of their character, that's all I care about. That's all I judge people on. I will hate you because you like Sami Zayn before I will hate you because of what color your skin happens to be.
I will hate you because you like Sami Zayn. I love it. What a great way to pull it around. Well, it's probably a good place as all to end it. We've got a pay-per-view tonight, and we'll talk about that tomorrow.